Hi, John. Welcome. I know it's only 1:30 p.m. in Chicago. That's where I am, and 11:30 a.m. Pacific time where you are. But in the spirit of thinking differently and not asking low value kind of comfort questions like, how's your day going, John? I like to spice things up a little bit and ask if you've learned anything new today. And if not, that's okay, because that's what we're here for.
Great question. First of all, my mom's the oldest of 9 children from the south side of Chicago. So I got a great connection, love, and affinity for everything in Chicago. I got probably 60 plus cousins over there that are in the police force or union pipe fitters or business people. So love Chicago. It's funny you asked that. You know, I train with a guy named Mac Newton. He's a Taekwondo 2-time champion, and now he's more into mental and physical fitness. But every day we start off with a talk, and today's talk was about relationships and how important relationships are. And there's 4 key fundamentals to relationships. You know, it's one, go into relationships not wanting to change the other person. Acceptance, accept people for who they are. You can't change people. If people want to change, they're going to want to change. I have to read my notes because I just read it. Acceptance, approval, say good things, praise everything good they do not criticize, express appreciation. People want to know what they're doing has consequence, especially when you're not in the mood, because it can't wait. You can't give that approval the next day. Appreciation. So yeah, acceptance, approval, appreciation, and admiration. Admire people for their traits and what they're doing. It was just interesting to remind ourselves when we go into an office and you point out someone's artwork or a special picture, how it makes them feel about themselves, feeling special, and how it can advance your relationship. So, you know, some of these things, and you'll get this with me, maybe are brilliant basics, but it was just a good reminder. We all know how important relationships are. Here's 4 quick reminders of how to build great relationships and how to maintain them. And it's good for business, because if you're running a team, all of these points make sense and are helpful.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I love that, actually, because, you know, I think everything we do is the essence of it should be really people centric. Right. And everything you mentioned is really a people-centric attitude and view on the world. And if I think we focus with that lens, it can make all the difference. So great. That was great insight. I appreciate it. Well, John, thanks for being generous with your time, honesty, and your insights. Welcome again to Sales Branding by Design. It's a space where we dive into a world that's really fascinating to me. And it's really the foundation, what I believe, for why any person or any organization does what they do. And we're going to explore here the truths behind sales, business, branding through the lens of what I call sales branding. So my name is Alessandro, but more importantly, we have John with us. He's an advisor, coach, and dad, among other things. I'm sure a million more fascinating descriptions that we'll soon discover together. So John, can you give us a 30 to 60 second kind of intro into who you are personally and professionally?
Yeah, thank you. Jon Hunter. I've been in sales, enterprise software sales my entire life, basically. I was at CA Technologies for 18 years, born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. My dad had a PhD in theology, and my mom was an English teacher. Brother went to Exeter and sister went to Harvard. I graduated from ASU, so didn't have the academic potential as my siblings and parents did, but I was more the street fighting, tough, street smart kind of person, but yet had an appreciation for all things intellectual. So I think those 2 things combined were helpful as I launched into the world, started at CA selling, distributed computing technology in Oklahoma, West Texas. And I just made my way, thought they'd fire me every year, and they never did, or at least they didn't quite. And then I ended up running North America for CA, which is about a $2 billion business, growing at 10%. And then I've been a CRO for OpenText, senior VP for BMC, sold it to KKR. And then most recently, I just finished being the CRO for Micro Focus in December, which is the combination of HP software combined with Attachmate, Novell, a bunch of other companies. So it was a really big time transformation, global, traveled 400,000 miles, got to see really people at their best and some at their worst, trying to really make this asset a great asset. And it was great. And what I'm doing now is I'm giving back. I'm writing everything I failed at, won at, succeeded at. I'm packaging it up and I'm giving it away for free. And I'm advising some really cool SaaS companies. A couple in the works, got OpsRamp right now, which is amazing. And that's what I'm doing. You know, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You know, I think a lot of people that have something to share, which is everybody. I've talked to a lot of people that feel like they just have to get that next position or that next win or the next achievement before they actually start putting out content. And I'm a big proponent and believer in we're learning things new every day. And if we have the ability and aptitude to just put that out there, we could help, you know, at least one person. And that's huge. Usually we can help a lot more. So I think you're on the right track and I appreciate that. You listed a little bit about your background. So I want to take a few steps back and also just take a next few minutes. If you can, just walk us through a little bit about your origin story. So, you know, where you grew up. I know you mentioned that a little bit, but you could dive a little further. How you grew up, what made you smile, and how you kind of got to where you are today. Understanding you touched a little bit on that, but I want to give you a little more time just to kind of dig in a little bit more about you know, who Jon is and what the origin story is.
Yeah, no problem, man. Well, it's a unique story. I mean, my dad was an ex-Dominican priest, which a lot of people don't know. You wouldn't have known it if you met him because he had left the church in the 60s when my mom was a Sister of Mercy nun. So what that means for this audience is I just had amazing, well-read, thoughtful, empathetic, high EQ, but also extremely high IQ parents who build an environment, a platform to build high self-esteem. And I believe self-esteem is the number one attribute for leadership in any industry. Like if you like yourself, you can fail and not overthink it. You don't get down on yourself. You don't get insecure. You don't worry about not getting the promotion or whatever. So I think the first thing that, you know, they came from the south side of Chicago. My mom was the oldest of 9. So they were very different people. My dad was a big guy, 6'5", booming voice, great orator, but just, you know, a book a day kind of guy. You know, I often described it as being like Alexander the Great running around with Aristotle. You know, here I am burning down cities, really competitive, hard charging. And I had this great kind of worldly, thoughtful advisor, father figure in my life who can help me, you know, be the best version of me, but also learn to change, learn to grow. And that was really the basis. Those folks moved from Chicago, you know, 1969. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. I have an older brother who's 11 months older, and I have a sister who's a few years younger. And just had a great childhood growing up in the desert where you really had so much freedom to be outside and to meet people and just have fun of being yourself. And that was those were the early days. And then, of course, making my way, I found I was, you know, one thing I think is unique is we've all had jobs in those days, in a paper route, for example, at like 11, 12 years old. I've reflected on that. I think that was an important point in my journey of learning how to go collect money for a newspaper at 11 years old. You know what I mean? Who knows how psychologically forming that is. You learn about it now when you get trained about leadership development, but at the time, having those parents getting into work at an early age, not just there, from there became working in the restaurant industry, going to school, very impactful, I think, with my makeup. Played high school football. I didn't play a ton of it, but I played enough high school football where it made an impression on me that I love being on a team, pure and simple. When that senior year ended, you know, I was devastated. I was sad. I was emotional. I just learned what it meant to keep my end of the bargain so my other people can be successful. Sacrifice, discipline, teamwork, those words didn't really mean a lot to me before I played a team sport at a high level. I went to NAU because a lot of my roommates were playing football there. I was not prepared. I was not that caliber football player, but I was in a fraternity. I learned again, extending teamwork, a lot of discipline about that part of my life, met some more diverse people, transferred to ASU where I got a degree in justice studies, which a lot of people ask me about.
Well, now is it true? I heard my friend went to ASU a long time ago, not a long time ago, but quite a bit of time ago. And when he was going there, they said ASU is one of the top 3 party schools in the country.
Yeah. Well, the new list just came out, ironically, last week, and it's not on there. The top 25 came out last week. And one of my sons is at Miami of Ohio, and I think he came out like number 20.
Okay.
So I think that's switching. Yeah, they got a new president, Michael Crow. They've really been working on innovation, business metrics, et cetera. So I think it's really evolved. The school is really, there's still partying going on over there, and I certainly partook in it myself. But
who didn't?
Yeah, they're really, I think they're ranked now top 50 in innovation and some other categories where they're improving their brand and emphasizing the academics. I think the business school is doing great. My unique story, which I preach about quite often, is I had a justice studies degree with a political science minor. And I get this all the time, right? These degrees are not good for business. And it really is a dangerous statement. I was taught by my parents, but also by these great teachers, to think critically. And liberal arts degrees really can do that for you. So I'm on the advisory board for the dean, for Pat Kenny. And some of the students, I'll talk to those students twice a year, and they'll ask me, what do I use the most running these big sales teams? Real simple: statistics and psychology. All the techniques that we learn in LDP classes in big companies. So CA, we had a culture coach twice for more than 2 years, teaching us what? Dr. Lou Tice, psychology, the Johari window, 5 dysfunctions of a team, self-awareness, you name it. All of these books, if you think about it, for all the mistakes senior leaders are making, are all baked in psychology, people, influencing, EQ versus IQ. And it's just so funny to me that a lot of times parents, uncles, brothers, sisters try to tell you, hey, you're getting a psychology degree. What are you going to do with that? I hear that all the time. And it just breaks my heart, because I want to say, you know what? You may rule the world with that. You may end up being the CEO who goes and hires an accountant or hires someone else to go do these other operational jobs. But I just think, you want to learn to think critically. And that's what I reflect on in my justice study work at ASU, where I was mature enough, I was sitting in my seat, I was ready to learn. And I'm just really grateful for my parents' patience and those teachers' patience of sticking with me. So I was able to really grasp all that critical training.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I just, over the last, I think, year and a half, I've read a few quotes that echo that. And I've always believed that. I went to DePaul University in Chicago, and I always find it funny, the metrics that they gauge schools in. So yours at the time was, one of the top 3 party schools, which is great for a lot of different reasons. Mine was voted the #1 happiest school in the country. And, that's great for its own reasons. I thought that was always interesting. But, to your point with the liberal arts degree, I also got a liberal arts degree in digital cinema. So it was directing and producing movies. It was a new thing. I was always a creative person, so it kind of spoke my language. And I made the switch junior year from pre-med, I was going to be a doctor, to I had the conversation with my dad. I'm like, I can't do medicine for the next 20 years. There's so many other things that I have a passion for. And he was generous enough and willing enough to allow me to see through some of my other passions. So I did that. But to your point, I recently heard about, Mark Cuban and Kevin O'Leary, both from Shark Tank. They both, over the last year and a half, made comments where now they believe with their advice is to people going into college and graduating, if they're doing that, is really liberal arts is where it is. because they're saying, 3 or 4, 5, 6 years ago, they would have said engineering. But now the value that a liberal arts degree gives you for anyone that is able to think critically, to your point, and or do video, the written word, take pictures and produce content at scale contextually to the different platforms that are out there, is some of the most valuable things that brands and businesses are looking for nowadays. So I agree with you 100%.
And just on that thread, just putting a cherry on top of that, think about particular jobs like writing code. So if you're a code writer in tech, which by the way is a great high paying job, we can't fill them. If we filled all the positions, I think unemployment would go down by like 1%. And guess who make the best coders? They're English majors and they're philosophy majors, because writing code is an art form. It's not binary. They're artists, because code is a personality. A code is how they think. And you see that flow in poetry, and you see it flow in English and philosophy. And a lot of people, when they're training their kids, they say, hey, I want you to be a super developer and create your own awesome company. And we're forcing them into these environments that don't bring out the best of them. So I think a lot of that's changing, but that's my point of view, and I love sharing it.
Yeah, that's great. Share more of it, because it really is the truth. And we need more voices like yours putting that out there in the world. So I appreciate that. To that point about how you were talking about, you mentioned a few things, and I want to tie it back to sales. So my definition of sales, tell me what you think about this. So sales to me is delivering happiness by influencing change, by solving problems, kind of in that order. And I'm curious your thoughts on that, and maybe more generally your thoughts on what is sales.
I just got to let that digest for a minute, but I think we're totally in alignment. I mean, first of all, I hate the word. The word has become synonymous with a one-sided, lopsided, somebody getting something over on you to do something for you with a month end or a quarter end to make a lot of money, and the other person who got sold to. I mean, think about it. Even if you just say it that way, hey, dude, you got sold yesterday on that thing. What does that connotation mean? Somebody pulled the wool over your eyes. Dude, you got sold. Right. I mean, it's become so synonymous with lack of trust, lack of empathy, lack of win-win, lack of understanding, as you just said it. What is your problem? So I'm a big metaphor guy. You'll see that with me. I will use pictures, music. I'm the Forrest Gump of this thing. I want a big color picture with 3 bullets, and that's it. And I like to think of sales, when I fell in love with it, it became when I started really understanding, as you just said, the problem that you have. So to me, it became about asking a lot of questions with this really stark, upfront opinion. If I can't help you, I'm out of here.
Yep.
And I got trained on that at a very young age with a guy named Guru Ganesh. If you've ever known, he had a business. I think he sold it to Sandler at one point. I think he's back doing it again. He was this turban wearing, F-bomb dropping sales trainer when I was 24 years old. And his whole thing that got crammed into my head was, so what? So what? And here's the hard part about it that we got to remember. I have a boss on my ass. I have no numbers. I have no pipeline. I'm scared to death. That's my mindset. So therefore, I got to go pull the wool over on you because I need to get a number on the board or else. And that's where the whole thing falls apart. And so what Guru embedded in me at a very young age was, hey, put all that crap, all those objections are in your head. Your job is to quantify and qualify. Do you have a problem? And even customers will come, yeah, just give me the solution. You got to be so disciplined to say, nope, not going to do that. I need to really know you have a problem. So long story long, it was just this insane amount of so what? Well, this problem happened. So what? That's not a big deal. Yeah. When you really want to add it to your pipeline, you want to tell your boss, look at this guy needs something from me. And we just throw all kinds of crap at them.
Right.
I got it baptized at a very young age to slow down and be the doctor. Do you have a problem? I use the analogy. My wife likes to take a Z-Pack for just about anything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, the doctor wants to ask you some questions. You may not need a Z-Pack, and you could have bad effects. And I think that's where the sales, non-sales. So I wrote a post called I'm the anti-sales sales guy. I want to
Yeah.
be the anti-sales. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm going to problem solve. I'm going to understand your environment. And if you don't want to go through that due diligence with me, I'm out of here. That kind of efficacy, that discipline, that self-confidence to be able to walk away is when they pull you in and you have what you just described: happiness, problem solving, win-win, and your trust currency is just going up, 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 and up. And guess what they do? They take your little deal and it becomes a really big deal in a collapsed amount of time. Why? Because they trust you. I'm not going to sell you anything. So that's kind of my opening salvo of how I think about it. Some of that is in the challenger sale work, if you're familiar with it, where CIOs in tech since 2008 do not want a supplier relationship anymore because they're all getting fired by just buying a bunch of stuff. They need to have a point of view. They want people with courage and to be able to push back. And so you can see it in that body of work, a much greater need for what we're both describing. And it's still just not out there enough, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. No, we're speaking the same language, because in all my experience, dealing with, organizations that have world-class, billion-dollar sales teams, and then small and mid-sized companies which are doing great work but are trying to scale and trying to get there. It's both. I think it starts with the mindset. It starts with the mindset of the people in the sales roles, and it starts with the mindset of leadership to nurture the right focus and to nurture the right activity. So, what's your advice? I mean, you kind of gave some on to the seller. What's your advice to an organization that may be rewarding the wrong things or focused on the wrong metrics to get there?
Well, first of all, I think it starts at the top in the operating plan. Think about it. In the boardroom, have you ever seen these companies? I was always mystified when working for a company where it just seemed we were off each other as far as what the plan is, what the quota is, what the targets are, and is it all scientifically mapped so we can actually do what we just talked about? Because the minute that becomes off-centered and fear then gets into the environment, I just think you're dead. Because it doesn't matter if you say these things we're saying, if the targets are too big, if the time to hit them is too fast, because some board member or some investor or some executive said, hey, I know we're growing at 22%, but could we do 48%? And someone goes, this is where courage comes in, because that's a form of power. When somebody comes in who has a formal power position and throws out there this idea, boy, we would all make a lot more money if we grew double that. And some people in leadership take those things literally. And it may have not been a literal request. It could have just been, hey, let's think about, but make sure the plan is baked in reality with science and conversion rates and ramp time. Then you can build this customer journey where it's value selling and it's artifacts and evidence and business outcomes. And you're putting all the pieces in the system. And we have the exact, I don't want to make it a red cross, have 4 years to close a deal, but I want to have the right amount of time so we can delight them to do the new logo, to expand it again. And I think if we can get the plans right and we can have courage and use data and science to build the operating plan, let that flow down to everybody's quota, and then let that flow into enablement and flow into leadership development and how we're going to coach and teach value selling, I think that can solve a lot of this problem.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Today, it reminds me of a post I read today from a friend of mine, Ken Baldo. He's a VP of sales, and he wrote, it was interesting. He said that, organizations always call it onboarding, when the person joins the company and they're getting them used to, the technology and educating them on the product. And he goes, it's kind of a wrong way of looking at it. It should be on building. He goes, onboarding, you're not boarding a plane or a rocket ship to Mars. You should be on building. So building the abilities and the skills and the confidence and the mindset of, let's say, the salesperson, so they can do the right thing, not spend 2 or 3 weeks or a month shoving product knowledge down their throat and then saying, okay, now go get some business for us. I mean, and that makes total sense to me. I think that's in alignment with a lot of things you're saying too.
Yeah, well, both of those require one thing also that you sometimes don't see in companies that are in hyper growth or in transformation status. They don't have a long-term view of their business. They don't have this mentality, I'm on building you because I'm going to have you here forever.
Right.
That was my mentality for a long time, and I still encourage people when I'm coaching and advising, is because sometimes those lack of the training that way, because their company's for sale or they're going public or they may get bought or whatever, some of that stuff gets into your mentality and you stop investing and building systems and programs and initiatives for people for the long haul. Or you'll let something like, well, look at the great resign. They're not going to be here anyways. Why invest in Mary? Because Mary probably just going to quit on it. I mean, that kind of cynical thinking gets into your four virtual walls of your company. I just think it's real trouble. You got to have this vision and belief system that we're going to be here forever.
Yeah.
And remember, CA Technologies was always in the newspaper for being bought, broken up, this, that, the other. I just never listened to it. Those things are out of my control. But if you worked for me, the culture you had was, we are all in this. We are tattooed. I used to tell people I'm tattooed on my neck. We're going to be here forever. And that's going to allow me to invest in you. Like I'm going to take care of you and support you forever. It may not work out that way. People can go off and do other things, but the mentality allows you to build this type of system that you're describing for the long haul. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that from a leadership standpoint, if you have an employee that has, everyone has skills, everyone has things they're good at. And I think that the mindset shifted years ago to, instead of trying to make people good at something they're not naturally good at, focus on their strengths instead of their weaknesses and build those things up. So I think that's huge. And, give someone the runway to use what they're great at and help them develop those skills so you can use them to the organizational advantage. I think that's so key. And, from one sales professional to another, a lot of things that, I've learned over the years and it's been reinforced even recently is this whole idea of really being problem centric and not product centric. And I think too many times salespeople go into prospecting or discovery calls and, we're so eager and excited to talk about us and we missed the whole boat and we didn't even get on base because, the whole thing should be problem centric, prospect, buyer centric. And the right conversation is just like you said, being, I think I need to solve those things. So I think we're speaking the same language. Part of my goal here is to help salespeople really improve that part of their business and that part of their mindset. I think there's huge room for improvement for individuals and high performance teams as well, because the stat is 50% of high performance sales teams hit their quota. So that means 50% are not hitting their quota. So there's huge room for improvement there. And I think it's all based on this problem centric process that is so important. So before we leave the sales world, any quick kind of tactical tips that you would love to share with salespeople on how to kind of maybe look at things the right way or improve their game?
Well, you hit on it. I mean, there's some really simple ways. I've been telling salespeople to go download the McKay 66. Harvey McKay is a kind of experienced trainer, sales trainer. He has a lot of books, but one thing that backs up your point is Harvey said there's no need for a cold call anymore. There's no need for it. Go look at your LinkedIn, my LinkedIn. I get 5-7 weird, bizarre, form lettered things, bullcrap in my, you're thinking to yourself, no, most of the things about me are published. My family, my kids, my point of view, all the things that make me are public. And no one takes the time to just be patient and go do your homework. And it's so, we didn't have it when we were in our 20s, when I was in my 20s. We would have to go through all this other manual labor to find out information on someone to discern if I can help them. So now, so if you go pull the Harvey Mackay 66, it talks about, where did they work last? What school did they go to? What's their admin's name? What's their, it gives you a 66 thing before you ever pick up a phone or you ever email anybody. Now, and here's the problem, Alessandro. It's their boss that's getting in the way a lot of times. So my call out to the rep is, just because sometimes you may not have a great manager, frontline manager, it doesn't mean you can't be great. You can be great. Go read on your own, go get best practices, go do the Mackay 66, and you watch how your interactions and your pipeline is going to exponentially, it take a little bit of time up front, but it's going to pay back tenfold by just getting the research done, putting some information together, and then when you approach that person, it's going to be warm, it's going to be trusted, it's going to be safe, and they're going to say, yeah, come on in, I'll tell you my problems, and your pipeline quality just goes through the roof. So first call out, reps, do your homework, it'll pay off. Second call out to managers, give your team the space and room to get to know their targets so they can make warm approaches.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I would, clap my hands to that because it's so true. And I've been in situations myself where, I have a lot of sales experience, have a lot of processes that have worked at other companies. And, a lot of times you get into situations where you're in a new role and the expectation is you were successful at another company, you know sales, just take your processes, bring them over here and hit the ground running. And as much as that can work, there's a lot of gray area there that you need time to vet out. It's the new processes, the new ICP, the new people you're going after, and then take the time to your point, do your homework, understand who you're reaching out to, understand all the stuff you said, understand what the hell problems does your company solve, and who cares about those problems in the organization. That's your target. And how are you going to talk to them where you're trying to understand if they're having these problems? Because if they are, it's worth a discovery call. If they're not, don't worry about it. Focus on somebody else. But I think, so much of it has to do with mindset of both the salesperson and the aptitude of the frontline leader to give them the opportunity to have the time to get there. We all need a little bit of space and time to make mistakes, try things out, iterate. That didn't work. Let me try it this way. But as long as you're moving forward and you have the motivation to do the right thing and make changes and learn, I think it's a win-win. We just got to get there together and help people do it.
That's right.
Awesome. All right, couple things. I know we're kind of this is a great conversation. We could be here all day long, so I don't want to take up all your time. But you did hit on a few things that I just want to quickly ask you about, and then I want to give you a little bit of space, as we just mentioned, to kind of share anything that you want to talk about that's important to you or near and dear to your heart that you want to share with the audience here. So I appreciate everything so far. You mentioned your parents, and I think this is huge. Your parents building high self-esteem, with you growing up. And it seems like that relationship you had with your father, it just seems like intentionally or unintentionally or subconsciously, you're the same kind of way. And now you're doing the same thing for your audience on LinkedIn and on social, sharing that knowledge and being that resource.
Yep.
So if you want to talk about both of those things, but let's start with how your parents, what are some things they did? I'm a parent too, you are. What are some things that they did that really worked to help you build your self-esteem?
Well, I think first, just a very nurturing environment where you never got criticized as a person. You could, we could critique an activity or behavior, but just the words and the time spent together to go work on something, and always watching your words, just the words of being encouraging, being uplifting, building, even when in my own mind, I felt like it wasn't good enough. I felt, man, I wasn't like my brother. I wasn't like my sister. I wasn't going to have 1,500 SAT scores. And I just didn't have parents who were just, God, what's wrong with you? It was always, yeah, you're so talented. You can do it. My way may be different. And that is the basis of this Hunter X platform I'm building. I'm building it out for people who feel that they're a little different. And I had to work the job. I had to go, I had to work a little harder to get through school. And the self-esteem was just people around you going, that's okay. You're got your own unique style. You're more social. You're great with people. You're resilient. You know how to build teams and laugh and bring humor and levity. And you're going to learn the other stuff too. And it was just the words of being positive and uplifting. Secondly, it's the time. I mean, most of the people I've seen are just not spending the time. They just can't get off their phones. They can't put their kids first. I mean, neighbors. I mean, this is just a guy who was just patient and listening and there. And we would go on, Indian guides and Boy Scout stuff and, all of these little escapades and trips and
Sure.
activities where you could just ask 1,000 questions and just constantly having this encouraging, but also some wisdom, some ideas to get better and to become
Yeah.
smarter and to become a better version of yourself. So I think this time spent as parents, really now today with technology, we've got to fight that dopamine addiction to hit our phones or to be productive at work and then stare at Johnny or Jimmy, who's probably staring at their phone too. There's a gap today, and I'm watching it on myself with my I have 4 kids. So yeah, I look at I think he was a little bit older, so because he'd been through all this church stuff and his business stuff came later. So I think I was blessed that he was at a place in his life where he wasn't in the rat race and he wasn't worried about being promoted. He was just like, man, I'm going to be an amazing dad, and I had a mom dedicated to being an amazing mom. Now they were also very different. So my mom was tough and an English teacher and like the ruler on you're at the dining room table, you're doing your work. Dad was a little bit more empathetic, jovial, laughing. Come on, think about it differently, son. You can do it. So I think the discipline and the hard work, oldest of 9, south side of Chicago, and there was no baloney with this woman, but it was all love. The whole thing had love and support, and it allowed you to fail, man. It just allowed you to
Yeah.
fail, and you didn't feel like an idiot. You failed, and it was like, okay, what'd you learn from it and get better? And I think that's what we can all, I think, strive for.
That's amazing. The whole failing thing is so key, and you hear a lot of people talk about it. But one of my favorite explanations of it from my mentor, Errol Gerson. I'll share his link in the description of the show notes. He's fantastic, amazing guy, one of the warmest, hardest person I've ever met, and so much knowledge to share. And the way he talks about on a lot of different things, but the way he describes failure is really first attempt in learning. To fail is first attempt in learning. And you're always going to fail your first time, maybe your second time. But to your point, as long as you're learning, failing is key. It's critical. It's good. Everyone says fail fast. I mean, yeah, that's fine. But if you're not failing, you're not trying. You're not doing anything different. And that's the only way to really grow.
Well, and think about that as a father, right? So if Dan Hunter is telling Jon Hunter at 7 years old, what the hell's wrong? Why did you score the goal? Why your test scores suck? Why can't you be more like your brother? And I'm not saying he's perfect, but it's
Yeah.
so easy for all of us to get emotional, especially in this performance culture. We all want to win. We all want to come out on top. We all want to see our kids score the goal and be in the elite classes. And I just think it takes a certain amount of patience and wisdom to just be around when the emotions are high, when your heart rate gets jacked up. That's when you got to be the most self-aware to be like, hey, now listen, I pulled myself away from the front row of the stadium now for myself because I had the same. I'm different than my dad. When my sons are playing football, I was in the front row and I started saying things that were just nonsense. And I just, you know what? That's not a good place for me. So I now stand in the back and where no one can hear me. And I just go into monk mode and contemplate and know that the coach has got it. But it took me some work.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a perfect example of self-awareness. I think something that we could all use a little more. I find myself, I have 3 kids, a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and just a 3-month-old girl, 2 boys and a girl. So, there's a lot of kids are amazing. I think they're the best gifts. They're the best, but they're a lot of work. And it's only natural to run into frustration. But I think when you could catch yourself in that moment, take a pause, that makes all the difference. So yeah, you got it. That's fantastic. Anything else, Jon, that you want to kind of share or talk about that, that you want the audience to know or understand?
Well, listen, if you're talking to sellers in your forum and you're really trying to get that selling community fired up and informed, which I just applaud you for, I just leave you with one thought for them. It's watch the imposter syndrome in your mind. You are good enough. I'm a great example of it. I've gone to more boardrooms, I've gone in more QBRs, and here was my mindset. These people are smarter than me. My ideas are not very good. And it was just through some self-awareness, going into some board meetings and going to some QBRs, and I just threw out a couple things. Hey, what about if we did this? And people have been like, that's pretty freaking good. And I had to build off of that. I started telling myself, really? You guys have never thought about this or that? And I'm seeing it today at the highest levels. I still have a little bit of it. Like, hey, what do I have to offer? You have so much to offer. They don't have it figured out. Losers come out of Harvard and Yale every day. That's a Dan Hunter quote, by the way. And, and he had a 160 IQ, but he would say losers come out of Harvard as much as they come out of the community college. It's about you being at your best and get that voice out of your head. Go to that QBR next time with the 5 things that you think are great that you're not seeing your team doing, and share them. And guess what? If they already all have 5 figured out, that's okay. Go on it next time, and keep the imposter syndrome at bay. Everyone has it. You're not alone. Get rid of it. Share your wisdom. And secondly, watch the voices coming into your head. It could be your mom, it could be your dad, it could be your spouse. If you have negative people around you who are saying, hey, your goals are too big, your dreams are too much, you got to remove those people from your life. I cannot tell you how many sellers I'm mentoring right now who are taking really crappy jobs because of a big salary to go buy a bunch of crap that they don't really need to impress people they don't really like. And then they're miserable and they're calling me and they're saying, how can you help me? And I'll ask them one question, Alessandro, why did you take the job? Did you like your old job? I love my old job. Well, why did you take this job? Well, it had a 50,000 more base salary. Well, who, and I'm now peeling back the onion. Well, who told you that? Well, my brother is a big wig at X, Y, and Z company. I went, oh no, here we go. And I'm like, my friend, you got to get your brother out of your head. You're not him, you're you, and make learning the key criteria for all these jobs when you're young. Learn, learn, learn. Forget the money, forget the base, live in a very frugal manner if you have to, but make learning, fight the imposter syndrome, share your ideas, and be great.
Hey, we couldn't have ended it on any better of a note. That is wisdom for the ages. That's wisdom for me, for everyone listening, for people that think they have their shit together, for people that don't have their shit together, for everybody, because it comes in all different shades. I'll add a little bit to that just because I think it's valuable. I heard a story about Simon Sinek that he went into this board meeting and he wasn't afraid to seem like the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
And I think if we're able to do that, don't worry so much about the opinions and judgment of others. Just know who you are and what your self-worth is, and move through life that way. In this example, was talking about he was in some huge corporation meeting and some marketing company was trying to sell them on, I don't know what it was, some marketing, let's call it a website. And they were saying all this technical jargon and then, this conversions and blah, 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 blah. And everyone in the boardroom was shaking their head and saying nothing, and it kind of agreeing because they didn't understand what the hell they were talking about. And he kind of, raised his hand and be like, I don't understand that. Can you explain it to me? Like, that doesn't make sense. And the more seemingly silly questions or dumb questions, there is no dumb question, but he was not afraid to put himself in a situation to seem like the dumbest person in the room. And by being that and asking those questions that no one else asked, they realized they weren't the right fit. They realized they didn't even know what they were talking about. So I think it just ties into what you're saying.
Just to put a cherry on top of the whole conversation and tying it back, I believe Simon is saying that because he has high self-esteem. You can look like the silly person in the room when you like yourself because you don't care. And so if we don't build the foundation of our lives on this strong foundation, I like me. And if I fail at this job and they fire me, okay, sucks a little bit. I don't really care. I'm going to go do it again someplace else. And that's what allows Simon to talk that way. And that's what he's seeing in other people in that boardroom when they have that insecurity building. And you don't like yourself. You say, you got to look perfect. I got to say the right thing. So, I just wanted to tie that back to self-esteem. I hope this helps. I am going to try to put it all out. Hunter X is going to be a podcast. It's a loose version of a podcast. It's just going to be really small, little morsels like this of wisdom, ideas, stuff I failed at, stuff that went right. So if you like this, send me a note. There'll be more of this coming. I would love the feedback, and I'd love to stay close to you on your journey, helping sellers, because there's nothing more noble and needed in this world than what you're doing.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to everything you're doing now that we're connected. Please keep it up. You're a world of wisdom from everything from business, entrepreneurship, sales, parenting, mindset. So please put it all out there. And predominantly, where would you like people to find you? LinkedIn, of course. Your
LinkedIn for right now. Yeah, I'll be posting. I'll have a new website. I'll have a new link right now. In the meantime, you can be able to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then I'll get my new entity announced in the next three to 4 weeks.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Jon. It was a pleasure, and we'll talk soon.
You got it. Thank you.